Hi y'all, welcome to my shop. Today we're going to turn a birdhouse ornament, but instead of doing one that you got to put on a little stand like this, we're going to make one that actually comes with its own stand. It looks like this, and it makes it easy for folks to display all year long, not just at Christmas time. You don't have to go looking or paying for a brass stand. So this is what we're going to turn. Now my suggestion is to get a piece of graph paper and sketch out something. It doesn't have to be fancy, but get a pretty good idea for where you're going in your portions. I've already done that, and I've got a pretty good feel for the size wood. You need a couple of pieces of wood like this, one for the roof, one for the body. The roof one ought to probably be a little bit larger diameter, maybe 2 1/4, and the one for the body might be 1 3/4. Then you need a stick maybe 7 1/2 inches long. And it needs to be at least 2 1/4 because you want a good solid base for that thing to rest on when you finish turning it. So let's get started.
Seems so it's like you're falling from the sky. Oh, so it's safe to take off my hard hat? Yeah, of course you don't need to have it. Hundreds of tickets from the sky just fell on top of you.
Okay, I believe this is some spalted sycamore I'm using. I'm going to go ahead and leave it between with some tailstock support until we get a little bit further. Okay, this is going to be the part that we're going to hollow. So I'm going to just approximate where the body is going to be, mark that, true this up first. I'll do that with a parting tool. The first thing I'm going to do is just put a very, very slight tenon on here that's going to fit into the roof. Mark the bottom. Marking it with a parting tool works better than a pencil because the pencil line goes away when you start cutting. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and hollow this out, starting with a, since I got a big drill bit, got a big drill bit with a Morse taper. I'm going to use that to start hollowing just because it's fast and easy. So better double check the depth so we don't get too carried away here. Cheapy Harbor Freight. Then I know where to put the tape, and pay tape's in the right place, so that's good. We're going to go ahead and start this thing. I could hear a rattling, so the chuck was coming loose off the spindle. Alright, I'm going to keep this under 1,000 for this drilling. Alright, before we hollow, we're going to go ahead and drill the holes for the perch hole and the nesting hole. So you want to look at your wood and get a feel for where you think the prettiest look is, and I think it's going to be right here. So I'm going to go ahead and mark the center for the perch, right for the nesting hole, and drill it using electric drill. I'm using a 5/16. That's personal preference, what size you want it to look like. I'm going to hollow it out just a little bit more, and drilling a hole now makes it easier to judge the thickness. Next we're going to drill a 1/8 inch hole for the perch, because we're going to put a little bird on the perch. I don't want the perch right there in the middle of the hole because the bird's going to obscure the view. So what I'm going to do is come off to the side just a little bit, to the left hand side and low. Oh, maybe a little over, just outside the hole, and parallel with the hole, if that makes sense. In other words, it's not going to be tipped out sideways, but it's going to go straight out. I'm going to mark that hole. Line it up. Okay. Now, because this is not a Christmas ornament that's going to go on a tree, we don't have to get crazy about hollowing, but I like to make it light as possible so it's not top heavy. So I'm going to go ahead and just hollow it out a little bit more with a spindle gouge, just like we do in a box. About 1,000, 1,200. Let me move the camera so you can get a little better view. Okay, anchor, brace. I'm using a 3/8 inch spindle gouge with the fingernail grind at probably about a 40 degree bevel. I'm going to come in the bottom. Now that perch hole lets people see how hollow it is, and so you do want to get it hollowed out a little bit. Got a little more to go. I think that's going to be good enough. Now we're going to finish shaping it. So I'm going to round over the bottom and round this top over just a little bit. And the bottom of that tenon gives me a target to shoot for. I can see that spinning. I'm just going to make this round. See how close we're getting to the perch. Not too bad. I probably could have moved both holes up just about 1/4 of an inch, but it's okay. Before we get it too thin down here, I'm going to go ahead and sand off camera. Okay, I know about where the bottom is. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bead here at the bottom to disguise a little bit, or make a little better junction for the eye when we mount the stand on it. So I'm going to take my point tool and just mark where that bead's going to go. Use my detail spindle gouge to cut in. I like that. I think I'm going to put another bead there. Now I want the bottom fairly round, maybe even a tiny concave right at the bottom where the stand is going to join it. So I'm going to shape that a little bit. And then here's a trick I learned on hollowing ornaments. I'm going to go ahead and take this down a little bit, like down below 1/4 inch. Then I'm going to drill it out to part it off with a 1/4 inch drill bit. So I have to get that little remaining stem just slightly below 1/4 inch. I'm going to turn this up to about 900, and then I'm going to drill it out because we need to have that hole in there, and it's a challenge to get it in there if we don't drill it now. And there we go. So we got the hole drilled out and we got it taken care of. Okay, similar to the way we did the body, we're taking the roof. I've already turned it around. We're going to put a tenon on it, put it in the chuck. Piece is just a little bit larger, so we can put it in our standard 2-inch jaws. So I grab another chuck with my 2-inch jaws on it. Now what we need to do is mark where we're going to put a slight recess, and I'm just going to trace that with a pencil just to get a rough idea. And then we're going to hollow this roof out just a little bit, not a lot, but just a little bit, in order to lighten the weight. I think for convenience I'm going to grab the smaller one. We'll hollow this out pretty fast, and I think we'll go just short of that mark. I'll brace it. I'm going to use a square end scraper, box scraper, just to put that recess in there so we can get the size right. Alright, let's do a trial fit. And that looks pretty close. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and hollow it out. And we're going to hollow it to a cone. I'm going to start that with this 1/2 inch spindle gouge, then we're going to drop down to 3/8 inch probably. We'll see. Got the speed at about 1200. I've got this facing at about 10 o'clock. And just slowly pivoting it. We'll double check the depth of that. We've got it to about there. As long as we make the roof taller than that, we've got it. So we've got just a little bit of a crack here, but that's okay. It doesn't go all the way through, so we should turn that off without too much effort. And I'm going to go ahead and put a parting cut here for us to shoot toward. Now, one of the advantages of putting a parting cut here is I'm going to be cutting toward the chuck. And as a result, if it slips off, you just don't want to go into these jaws. By having that that parted down area, it kind of gives me a safety area to fall into, and I'll hit wood, so that just provides a little extra safety measure. So it's a good thing to think about. Take your time with the cut. Don't force it. Let the tool do the work. Check like that shape I'm getting. A little bit here. Not too much. Here more. There's some waste there. I'll switch to small gouge. A little chatter, there's not lots more here. I'm going to get my finger there. Stir it just a little bit. It's a little bit of chatter. I'm also going to take it out, of course, it's paper. I'm going to go ahead and shape the very end there to a little ball. We use detail, basic detail, guys. And we're going to start to fall down. And do it. We're going to roll the bead. To the top of the ball. Now it's time. I'm going to go ahead and do a little sanding, and then we'll part that off. Okay, I've sanded this down. In addition, I brought up this 60-degree cone for support. And I think that's going to be important because I'm going to do a little texturing bead here, a band with this Wagner tool, or Ron Brown's Best, if you will. And we're just going to put it in there. And we're going to slow this down a little bit. We're looking at somewhere around 600 or so. And we're going to go in perpendicular to the wood. And people that have used this tool that didn't have good luck with it, basically were impatient. So what we're going to do, once we get it going, we're going to hold it there. One message. Okay, sorry about that. My battery went dead on me, so I've got it plugged in. And let me give you a little bit of a close-up of the final result after we did the texturing and use the pyramid tool, the point tool, and put just a little bit of a band on each side. So you can see it gives us a nice little detail. When we put some finish on it, that'll look very nice. I'm going to go ahead and part that off, and then we'll start on the base. So this is looking real good. Because we've got a big chuck that'll hold this block, I'm going to go ahead, instead of putting it between centers, I'm going to hold it in here square, bring it up tailstock support, round this end, put a tenon on it, and then put it in the chuck. So, okay, I'm replacing that larger chuck with one that'll fit this tenon. So we'll go ahead and tighten it up. This is going to wind up being the base. This is going to be the top of the stand. We're going to work from the tailstock back, since it's going to be a fairly small spindle by the time we finish. Turn this round. That's why we always turn things round, to make sure it clears it. I'll give you the chance to use my big on the laser but this is a good time for pouring down. I'd be reluctant to take that cut without this tailstock support. Now we're going to go ahead and put a 1/4 inch tenon to fit that birdhouse on. So I'm going to go ahead and take this down. Got a little wrench to help me size it. Trust but verify, right? And that's perfect. I think I'm going to go ahead and take it back just a little, make it a little bit longer, and then put a bead on it. So I'll actually do that. Use a smaller tool rest where I can get in close. Now, having a good sized chuck and a good chunk of wood would pretty well support this pretty well without too much chattering or flexing. Okay, now put a little bit of bead on the end. I can see where it's going. By doing that, you give us an opportunity to take it down. Kind of using the edge almost like a skew for a planing cut. Go ahead and take down a little bit more. So we've got a center with a soft touch of that plastic. I can't remember what you call it, but it's a 1/4 inch, so it'll support this very well without marring it or damaging it. And that'll give us a little extra support as we work this thing down. Shoot, now we go back after it after this big skew. Time for me to start considering the shape of the base. We don't have it completely round, so let's go ahead and take care of that first. Part it right there. And then we're going to take just a little bit of chamfer here on the end. So when it sits on the table, it'll look like it's kind of rising out. I want to leave a pretty good mass down here for the weight to hold this, but we want to, of course, control that mass and still make it pleasing. So I've still got to taper, but we're going to make it fairly thick in there. Okay, I want to take off just a little bit more here, and then we'll figure out how to decorate this. Okay, I don't really feel too many ripples, so I'm happy with that. We'll go ahead and sand that now, and then we'll come back and do the base. Okay, we got it sanded down. The more I look at this shape, the more I think I kind of like it. They say if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I guess that refers to folks with texturing tools. I'm going to go ahead and mark where I'm going to texture. We're going to slow the lathe down to somewhere around 500, 600. I'm using the smaller spiraling wheel. Chances are I'm going to get somewhat of an uneven spiral because it's changing the profile, but we'll see what happens. So we're going to engage the wheel, then lift the handle and move to the direction of the lower wheel. One of y'all commented earlier that I didn't give you a close enough detail last time I used a texturing tool, and rightfully so. For hopefully this will correct that. And that's all it takes. Oh, I'm pleased with that. That's a very nice tight spiral. So now all we've got to do is come in there with our point tool and put a little detail in there to kind of make it pop a little bit. I can see it went a little bit beyond the edge there. So I'm going to move the point tool just to the outside. Drop that. And I think that's good. I think I'm going to round over this sharp edge here a little bit. Okay, we're going to go ahead and part this off. We'll turn the speed up to maybe just under 1,000. I'm using a fluted Nick Cook 2mm parting tool because I can go under it a little bit and get a very neat, clean cut and concave it in slightly. So I'm still going to come back and make 2 passes so I don't get this parting tool trapped in there. But I am concaving it slightly. I'm going to part off with one hand. Well, that wasn't pretty. That's what happens sometimes when I did get it trapped a little bit, and it tore the fibers, so I'll have to do a little extra sanding on that, but that's going to be a base of this, and it's not going to get lifted up too often. But I'll cut the tip of that off with a skew, and we'll sand it. Okay, what I'm going to show you is a little bit extreme. It's almost over the top, but I just want to give you an idea of the kind of things you can do if you get creative. So what I did was I put this in the bottom of the chuck very, very lightly. I probably should have put a piece of tape on that, but I'm only going to take one minor cut, and I'm going to show you how we're going to decorate the bottom of this thing, even though I didn't really plan for it. First, I put it in the bottom, and I'm going to cut just the tiniest little dovetail right here, and I think we'll cut it that way. Fairly low speed, and I'm just going to come in right here. Okay, and you say, now what does that do for you? It doesn't look bad. So what we're going to do is take this chuck off. You can see it really didn't leave any marks on it. We'll touch it up with a little more sandpaper just in case. And we're going to take these 35mm jaws, which have a dovetail on them, believe it or not, a real dovetail. And we'll just see if we can't reverse this by putting this all the way into the headstock and grabbing it right here with these dovetail jaws, and then we'll be able to do whatever we want with the bottom. So we're just going to lightly, very gently, but because it's a very close match, that dovetail and clamps almost the entire surface. We'll see how true it runs. Runs very true. So now we have an opportunity to power sand it, as well as put a couple of little decorating grooves, and we can deal with any little sanding issues we might have created by holding in a chuck. So let's do the sanding first, and then we'll come back and decorate that. Oh, by the way, I put a couple of drops of CA and some sawdust in there. Kind of help fill that hole. So now we can take our point tool and actually make a few little tiny rings in the bottom just to add a little bit of decorative feature. So I'll look at the area where I had a bit of an edge, and that's where I'm going to put the rings. So now we've got a little decorative feature at the bottom. So just shows you what can be done. Okay, I showed this on a previous video, tips and tricks, but let me show it one more time. If you use a plumber reamer, and let's say you got a hole that's just a little too small, and because this video is getting kind of long, I'm not showing how to turn a perch, but I made it a little bit too small. All you do is you take the tip of this thing and you just enlarge that hole a little bit. And it gives you an easy way to get that thing to have a good fit. Now, these things are a little bit nicer when you put a miniature bird. Sometimes they're hard to source, but I found these at Hobby Lobby, very inexpensive. There's 12 of them for $2.99. They're not as nice looking as some, but they are readily available, and this is the cheapest, for about a quarter a piece. That's the cheapest price I've seen. Okay, well, that was a fun project, turning this little miniature birdhouse on a stand. If you liked it, please subscribe. If anybody's got any unique ideas for Christmas tree ornaments, I'd love to have them. You can mail them to me or make a comment. I'll have my email address on the screen. If you've got pictures of any of the ornaments you've made from this project, based on this project, I'd love to have them, and I'd love to show them on a future video. Thanks.